Warsaw, September 1940. The Germans are rounding up civilians off the street, grabbing anyone, herding them toward trucks, sending them wherever the occupation needed bodies that week. A man lets himself get caught. His real name was Witold Pilecki, a Polish cavalry officer already fighting in the underground, already wanted. He had false papers ready that day. The name on them was Tomasz Serafiński. He didn't run from the roundup. He walked into it. He knew where those trucks were going. A camp the Germans had opened the year before, outside a town called Oswiecim. Auschwitz. He volunteered for it. Nobody made him go. For the next 31 months, Pilecki did what he went in to do. He built an underground network inside the camp, recruiting prisoners, organizing sabotage, smuggling out information a piece at a time, however he could move it. Starting in 1941, that information reached the Polish government in exile, and through them, Britain and the United States. Some of the earliest first-hand reports the Allies received that Auschwitz had become a machine for mass extermination, not a prison, a machine, came from a man who'd walked in on purpose to make sure someone told them. Here's the part this show can't soften. It didn't work. Not the way it should have. The Allies had the truth from a man who'd put his own body inside the wire to deliver it in 1941, years before the camps were liberated, years before the world claimed it didn't know. Having the truth early didn't change what happened next. Nobody came. Nobody bombed the tracks. Pilecki kept sending word anyway. Instead, in 1947, the government now running Poland, installed by Moscow, answering to Moscow, arrested him. Here's the why, because this show doesn't get to skip it. Pilecki never stopped being what he'd always been. After the war, he kept gathering intelligence, this time on the new communist government, still reporting to the Polish authorities in exile in London. The government he still considered legitimate. The same instinct that made him walk into Auschwitz to bear witness made him keep watching and keep reporting under the regime that replaced it. That is the entire case they built against him, not treason, witness. He was tried for espionage for doing, against a new enemy, exactly the thing that made him a hero against the old one. For over 40 years, the official record of Poland listed the man who volunteered for Auschwitz to warn the world as a traitor, not quietly forgotten, actively erased on purpose by the people who killed him. He wasn't legally cleared until 1990, after the government that convicted him had itself collapsed. Wider recognition, a biography, a state honor, that took another decade and more on top of that. Witold, you volunteered for the one place on earth built to make sure no witness walked back out. You walked out anyway, and you spent every day inside making sure the truth had a way to travel further than you could. Then peace came, and it should have been over. And instead, the people you'd bled for put a bullet in the back of your head for doing the exact same thing you did at Auschwitz, watching and telling someone what you saw. We're a show called The Last Witness. You were an actual one, the real thing, the word made literal, in the worst place that word has ever had to apply, And your own country tried to make sure nobody remembered that you'd been one at all. We don't know exactly where you're buried. Some grave in some field outside Warsaw, unnamed, waiting on a shovel and a DNA test that may never find you specifically among the others. That's the last cruelty in a life that had already survived every other one. Even your body was denied a record. We salute you, Witold, for walking in when you didn't have to, for the report the world was too slow to use, for the uprising, for the 31 months, and for every year after your death that your own country spent lying about who you were. History owes you a name on a stone. We're just trying to give you back the truth in the meantime.
Warsaw Street, September morning. The truck is loading up its haul. He could run, but he stands still there. Lets their hands take him, one and all. Nobody knew the name he carried. Wasn't the one his mother gave. He walked in through the gates already, digging what he thought was his own grave. 31 months behind that wire, counting names, counting the dead. Smuggle the truth out one page at a time. Prayed that somebody read what he said. 1941, it reached them. London and then further still. Nobody came to burn the tracks down. He kept on riding anyway. He will. Somewhere there's a grave with no name, waiting on a shovel and a prayer. He walked into hell to bear the witness, and they buried the witness there. Some men die for what they hide. He died for what he swore he saw, and they wrote the word traitor over the bravest man in the law. He came home to a different master, same watching, a different foe. Kept sending word of what was happening, same as 31 months ago. That's the whole case that they built there. Not a lie, not a single one untrue. They shot him for telling the truth twice. Once to them, and once about them too. 40 years a traitor on paper. 40 years his children couldn't say his name out loud. Then the wall came down in '89, and somebody finally allowed the truth to catch up to the record. Too late for him to hear it said. Some man get remembered breathing. He only got remembered dead. Somewhere there's a grave with no name, than the ones who broke the law. Somewhere in a Warsaw field, the ground still hides a man. Somewhere in an old report, the truth still waits to land. And somewhere between the wire and the wall, a soldier's asking still if telling the truth is worth the cost, when no one comes until they will. A grave with no name, that's all they left him.